If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And welcome to The World Today. Joachim Hagopian is an independent journalist and a great friend of us. He's spot on with just about everything he talks about. It creates the inclination to think about things and to talk about things. Joachim, thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Now, we're going to talk about Israel and the hostages, obviously. Hamas has released the hostages, and Israel has released, I think, about 2,000. Does Israel have any more?
Oh yeah, they have. I think it's upwards of near 17,000. Over the years, they've collected them, and some of them are in there for many decades now. So yeah, I believe that this is the tip of the iceberg as far as releasing the Palestinian prisoners.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. The peace pact, though, has been signed by Trump and Middle Eastern countries. What does this signify?
It signifies a pause in the violence, although when it comes to Israel, they're not known for a pause for very long. As a matter of fact, they were killing people even after the initial ceasefire was declared. Uh, they have a habit of doing this. Any other country that signs a peace agreement is very happy to have the peace and not have to go kill people again, but not Israel. That is the exception. Um, and, they have a Mossad operation there that has a motto. Basically, its motto is deception, and thou shalt wage war through deception. That is their motto. So, every other agreement that Benjamin Netanyahu in his entire professional life has made, he has violated and broken. So now that he has the remaining Jewish hostages home, he has very little incentive to hold the peace. Right now, he's upgrading his operations in Lebanon, in southern Lebanon. They're doing airstrikes again there, even though there's supposed to be a ceasefire there. So we're seeing that he has this greater Israel plan to take over a large segment of the Middle East, all of the countries. And that is his ambition. He knows that without war, he has no more political life. He's on the verge of, being prosecuted for all the corruption crimes he's committed as a least penalty. And he's a war criminal too. So he's not been winning the war. He was supposed to go in there and neutralize completely the Hamas, and he hasn't. Basically, every person you kill, you have sons, daughters, brothers, fathers that are willing to take up the cause of resistance. It's just the way human nature is. When you have a homeland that is ancient to your Semitic bloodlines, and that's what the Palestinians are. They are the Semites. The Ashkenazi Khazarian Jews, 97% in Israel, are not Semitic. Therefore, the whole premise of having a Jewish nation in the Middle East is based on a wicked lie, because there is no birthright to having your genetic lineage linked to the Middle East, when in fact your ancestors were never ever living there. These people are from Eastern Europe that are now they're in Eastern Europe. That includes part of Russia, part of Ukraine, that migrated from Eastern Europe to there once they opened up the 1948, you know, Akbak, which wiped out, purged a million Palestinians at that time, prior to even becoming a nation. So, yeah, the odds are not looking real good for the home population of the Palestinians.
Just the okay, because we everyone's talking about the peace deal, but tell us actually what it involves and how does it impact, say, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey.
Well, what it involves in the initial phase, which has been complied with to the extent that it is a prisoner and hostage exchange. So that part has already been done. I doubt if there's going to be more Palestinians that are freed. And obviously, they only have the corpses of the Israelis that are then still in Palestine that are coming back to Israel. So, what's to come? This quote 20-point plan has nothing to do with Palestine becoming an independent state, a recognized independent state country. Uh, it's not part of this plan. Uh, Another thing, this plan is supposed to have the Hamas, drop all their weapons and stop resisting. That's not going to happen. So it's preposterous to believe that all 20 of these points in this plan are going to be followed. It's just built to be a failure. And Netanyahu, he never had it in mind that this would be a permanent ceasefire. He wants to do more war. His war cabinet around him have that ambition to continue. So now that the last of the Israeli hostages are back in Israel, oh yeah, it's full speed ahead with more war on Gaza.
Could you tell me where Tony Blair is in this? I mean, the goblin is somewhere. Where is he? What's he doing? Because I mean, at one stage he wanted to be the first governor of Gaza.
Yeah, apparently Trump handpicked him to become like the colonial viceroy of Gaza. Uh, we're talking about a horrific war criminal. He went by the name of Miranda in college, where he was a cross dresser. He had a cabinet uh, during his prime ministership in Britain where they were predominantly pedophiles. So he's not got, and of course, he's a war criminal that he did the whole war along with the Bush and the inside job with Israel to do the Greater Israel Project wars of Afghanistan and Iraq, long drawn out losses for both sides, Britain and America. So yeah, where they pull him out, you know, it's only no good because he has a track record of only doing no good. So I hope he's nowhere to be found. Actually,
It's interesting. Penny Wong, who is on the very, very left of Australia's politics, and she is I think she's our foreign minister. I think she is. I'm not too sure about that one, but she said that Donald Trump was the only one that could have brought this peace deal, inverted commas, brought all the parties together and made it work. Can you then tell me what will happen to the West Bank under Israeli occupation? And really, what's changed except they're not shooting at each other at the moment?
the same way that Gaza is in the crosshairs of ethnic purging genocide. Well, Israel has already annexed the West Bank. They're next. They have it in mind to take over all of Palestine, including part of Saudi Arabia, including Lebanon, including Iraq. I mean, it's the Greater Israel Project. And Netanyahu's going to go all the way because he feels like his best chance is right now. Uh, they're also going to attack again. And I say they, meaning Israel and the United States. Can't have one without the other. And there is a plan in place at any time to attack Iran again. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. Um, and Iran's prepared for it. They were off guard the first time around in June for that 12-day horrible loss by Israel. Uh, and they are much more prepared this time around for any kind of offensive by Israel or the United States or both. It will be both. They're ready. So yeah, I don't see positive coming out of this thing. It's a good thing that there's less violence right now, and a good thing that people have been brought home. But beyond that, it's all bad.
Yep, watch this space. Joachim, if somebody wants to find out more about you, support you, with a shorter segment today, only because I think you're trying to catch your water buffalo and it wouldn't come home, or something like that. That'll do at the moment anyway. If they need to and want to follow you, how do they do that?
I write all my articles on the governmentrag.com. I do a Revolution radio program on Fridays. And I do a couple of Jim Fetzer broadcasts also on Revolution Radio. So I'm on the radio, I do podcasts, and you can find all my writing on the governmentrag.com. I also have 5 books on pedophilia and empire that are available at pedoempire.org. And if you want to buy the paperback, it's on Amazon.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And welcome back. Nice to have your company too. I'm Mike Ryan. This is The World Today. My guest is Dr. Frank Romano, who's an author and Middle East analyst and loves sailing to that particular area. Twice now, I think it is. Frank, thanks for joining us. What's your thoughts on the signing of the Peace Pact?
Well, I really think it was good for the first stage. And of course, we talked to the other speaker about that, but you can make a direct analogy, even though they're two different situations. Fundamentally, the peace agreement between Sinn Féin and the authorities, local authorities in Ireland, and also making analogy with what's happening in Gaza and Palestine and Israel. It's very real, this analogy, and the biggest failing, and I'll get right to it, is Mike. It doesn't include the Palestinians enough. In fact, it doesn't include them at all. Just the first stage with the exchange of hostages. After that, there's not much similarity with the agreement that helped bring a durable peace to Ireland. And in Ireland, Sinn Féin and the other militant groups were involved in every stage of negotiations. And that way, at the end, there were agreements, and Sinn Féin finally agreed to lay down its arms and integrate into the political system. Here we have some very innocuous allusions to the fact that what Hamas wants, and of course Palestinians want, is their own state at the end, saying, well, if you agree to all these things, we might consider the possibility of Palestinian statehood. But the weakness really, Mike, is in the direction, which is the team that's going to be head. And I don't think it was specified by the other speaker, that the team that's to be set up, the committee that is to be in charge of governing Gaza, would be head by Mr. Trump. And of course, we have Tony Blair as part of that committee. Then they're going to involve some type of a defense force they're going to put together. And as was alluded to the previous speaker, Tony Blair has a lot of shadows in in his past, the quartet from the 2007 to 2015, where he was in charge of trying to find some type of durable peace, was a total failure. So we're bringing in a guy that Trump knows, he likes him, his buddy type of thing, that's really incompetent to bring things together because, especially on the Palestinian side, they have no faith in him. So bringing in people like that is ingredients for failure there. Not involving the Palestinians in this agreement. In fact, they're pretty well not even included. We've got this quotes unquote peace agreement signed by the United States, I think Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey that doesn't include the Palestinians. It should be something working together, one step at a time, between Israel and the Gazan and Hamas and other militants working together very hard for a durable peace solution. So I really think it is set up for failure.
I agree with you, and I think the name peace deal, or what they're calling it, is truly it's fictitious, isn't it?
Yes, it's clearly it's kind of, and I'm French American, and I see we've got some grandstanding that Trump needs to be slapped on the back. He needs to have this glory, and this is the ignominious part of it. He's coming to Europe to say the war is over and getting applause, and it hasn't even the peace, quotes unquote, peace process. I mean, you can't have peace without freedom, and a certain amount of promises for freedom, in particular, the Palestinian militants that are seeking some type of equanimity, has got to be addressed. So it's like Trump is seizing the moment of glory and coming to seek applause on the short term, and then he's getting the applause he wants, almost like a big kid, or a small kid that just needs to be nourished in some type of some type of success because he's extremely insecure, and in reality, not really focusing on what's needed for a durable peace. And so it's a bit of a joke, him coming prancing around the Middle East and plotting, and then in reality, deep down inside, there is no durable peace agreement. There's nothing to really applaud other than the exchange of the hostages and prisoners. That is definitely a success, and giving him accolades to at least spearhead that. But that's as far as it goes. And unfortunately, if it stays like that, as the former speaker, the previous speaker said, it looks like since the hostages have been returned, that this is also going to launch into perhaps another military operation by Israel into Gaza.
So, okay, it's part A and part B of this one. According to the inverted commas peace deal, what is to happen? According to, this is part B, according to reality, what will happen?
What really will happen is since Hamas was not involved, or Islamic Jihad and the other militant groups really in stage by stage negotiations, it's going to rev up again. In fact, as we noted earlier, even after this so-called peace agreement was signed, Israel was still attacking people in Gaza and the West Bank and in Lebanon. So they're just reeling to get started again. They're going to throw out a few crumbs, Netanyahu, to his people, saying, well, I've now released the hostages, finding some pretext now. In particular, it will be Hamas's fault and Islamic Jihad fault why they're going to go back to war again. So really what's going to happen is, unless something radical happens where a group that has a certain amount of respect by both sides intervenes or is incorporated into these negotiations, where they can really have tangible decisions about the next stage. Next stage will be now Israel theoretically is supposed to withdraw beyond a certain line, and then this new force that Trump alluded to in this 20-point deal is to take its place. I think it's called the ISF or some type of a force. and made up of Palestinians and others. They're supposed to be fairly objective. That could be a way to start things off. I don't see that happening right now. I hope it will, but and then requesting that Hamas lay down arms, almost throwing it out, with absolutely no backing to it, and absolutely no encouragement for Hamas to do so, is really ridiculous.
Tell me about the flotilla, the Freedom Flotilla, and it's interesting too that the I would say from legacy media, the most attention was with Greta Thunberg, but truly, I mean the significance of the flotilla was bastardized because of Greta, because heaven help if they are going to focus on what it was meant to do in the first place. So what we'll do is we'll try and dismantle the credibility by attacking Greta. Tell me, was it a success? Were you comfortable with the end conclusion, and what do you think it achieved?
Well, it really was very successful, and I have to say, I know more obvious about the global Sorbonne flotilla because I was a part of it, and but then as this time, as opposed to the gondola, I was a part of the gondola and the owner of the gondola. I piloted the gondola 8 hours a day, so I didn't have much time to work with the media. The media attention, however, and for the global Samad flotilla, really did get out there. So I think one of the biggest goals, really, to showcase. I mean, we're vehicles, Mike. We're nothing more than vehicles. I know some people are there, and there's a bit of ego here and there, and then that selfie issue, and we'll get into it with Greta and others and how sincere all that was. But we did showcase the Palestinian struggle through a lot of different types of media, which is reaching people that are still on the fence about what's happening, and they're still on the fence about supporting Palestinians in their struggle for independence. And I think that was successful. We were able to showcase their struggle through different media, and a lot of people saw it. And now the Honduras was the beginning, so was the Magdalene, opening up the People's Corridor, breaking the siege, and following through with all these boats and media attention, I think, and people like you, Mike, and other media people and journalists, showcasing was, really so fundamental. And, without the press, without you, what we do, and I hate to say it, would be almost useless because the world would not know about it. And we want the world to know, not about us again, and explain the difficulty of the Palestinian struggle. And another thing, Mike, that really was successful is because many of us have a lot to lose. It's not like we're just hanging out for a joyride. We've got families, we've got jobs, and we're taking this, it's a high risk thing, but it's a necessary risk. It's nothing about heroism and all that stuff. It's about an obligation that human beings have to bring food, water, and medication to a struggling people that is literally asphyxiated by this horrible genocide. And we weren't able to bring the food directly in. We're working on that, but we were able to showcase it, and I think it really did help shift maybe a world public opinion. Hopefully, that will be durable and not just short term. So that part was important, Mike. And then the follow up with the 1,000 Madeleines and the conscience showing consistency. They have the same goals that we do. And of course, they were all intercepted and sent to arrested. And this time, however, we'll get into that. Ben Gvir sent out that order to treat us like terrorists, and to some degree we were. That's another issue. But I really think that for that reason, because I think it did have a more influence, much more than the Magdalene or the Handel even together, was really bringing things together. I don't think it had anything to do with the ceasefire. It just happened to be at the same time. Might have been an element that helped push for the ceasefire. But I'll talk about it more because Israeli government intellectuals visited the prison and spoke to me twice about solutions, not just trying to convince me what I did was wrong and all this other stuff, and trying to get information. They tried to get confidential information. That didn't work. So that was a sign that there is a desire inside the Israeli government to find a solution to this in a peaceful way, and a solution to subsequent boats that are going to start massively, hopefully, coming into the waters and maybe coordinate with the March to Gaza movement.
When again you met up with your captors, can you just go through, because people have asked me, so what happened? What went on? Can you just go through the process again of their meet and greet with you? We meet you, we greet you, we take you to jail. How did that transpire? What happened?
Thank you, Mike. This question is not asked as specifically as it should be, and therefore you don't really have specific answers. Shayatit 13 is that very vicious commando that's always there to intercept. That's the very tough command. It's like the Navy SEALs, but they're really trained to kill, and they intercept us. But we train for them, not to provoke, and that was fairly harmonious. I don't think there was any provocation. But when we get to shore, and they transfer us to the local police. And when the police are out of camera range, they were really violent with us. They took people and they rammed their arm under, behind their back, some of them. One of my friends who was on this, I was on the Spectre boat, who's a very calm and easygoing guy, was targeted, and they actually sprained or broke his arm, because the next thing I saw when we were being processed later on was his arm was in a sling. And this is something that didn't happen with the Madeleine and did not happen with the Hondola. Right away, they told us to crouch down and hit our head on the very hot, it was like, very hot ground outside, and stay there. And it was a very difficult position to be in. I was in that position after 15 minutes. I thought it was very difficult. I was in that position for 45 minutes. And finally I was stood up, and then, I was led to the processing area, which was similar to the Madeleine and Honduras, where you just process you and they ask you questions, interrogate you over and over again, and then they send you to prison. But other people stayed in that awful position, Mike, for 2 or 3 hours, and some people were kicked if they ever looked up. For instance, my friend was targeted again while he was crouched down, and he had that painful arm that had been broken or sprained. We still don't know what happened there. I think some women were contesting a little bit. I think they pulled them by the hair. Some people were dragged to the processing center, again with their hand wrenched behind their back. This was a response, I believe, Mike, that the order by Ben-Gvir about a couple of weeks before, that treat us like terrorists. And so they're giving us a taste. I'm sure the Palestinians definitely go through this. I know that is a fact, but it's much worse. They keep them out in the sun for 24 hours and so forth. This is a type of torture, what they did to us. But it's not over. When they interrogated us and wanted to get information and wanted us to sign papers to get immediately deported, which most of us declined, some of us did, and then they arrested us, put us in these buses, and took us to the Kitziot prison in Negev Valley, which is also different than the Hondola and the Madeleine. Hondola and Madeleine took us to an immigration prison, which was much lighter, and right near Ben Gurion Airport, and then we all were deported by plane. Then we went to Kitziot, which is a Negev center. Apparently, there are Palestinians there that are there for long term. I saw that some were released from there. It was a tough prison, and I can go into that if you want, Mike. But this was really a different deal than the Honduras or the Madeleine. We kind of expected something, but it was really, there are many violations to add to the the war crimes that Israel has committed after the global Samad Flotilla people were arrested and taken to prison. And I think also when I'm reading about the 1,000 Madeleines and the conscience, they were treated similarly to the way we were treated.
Go into it. I want to know. I'd like to know what happened.
Yeah, now, okay. They put us in these, they put us together this time. After the Honda, they put us in these kind of like really closed off kind of compartments inside a van. And there might be one or two people. There's no air. It's asphyxiating. But the trip to the immigration facility, which is a detention facility, was much shorter, and it was doable, and that's where we were put after the Honda. Here, we were put in at least on the way there. Coming back was another problem when they dumped us off over the Jordan border. But this time they put us in a kind of like a bus, very hard chairs, very, very uncomfortable. But this time we were together on these, and then they took us. It was a 2-hour ride, very long, not much air again, to the Kitziot prison in the Negev Valley. Once we got there, then they put us in a cage. That's again very different than the Madeleine or the Handela. Put us in a cage, at least the males and the female were put in cages. And then we were slowly processed, and there was not enough room to sit down. It's almost like one of the people on the boat said we knew about the Syrian prisons where people are standing up all night long because there's no place to lay down or sleep. It was sort of like that, and we thought, this is going to be the same or what? They processed us little bit by bit. We were just sent out there to to put on prison clothes and so forth, and then we hear a brouhaha, and lots of people coming by, and all of a sudden this monstrous Ben Gavir walks by, and he yells out things like "You're terrorist, glad you're there," and things. And we did not receive him very well. We did some Palestinian mantras, and we yelled out, "You're a war criminal," things like that. And he just walked by, just intimidation, but it really didn't intimidate us. It just emboldened us more in our action to showcase the struggle of Palestinians. Then we were processed one by one. It took a long time, and we were taken to some cells where we shared with 5 or 6, 7 other prisoners. But after a while, Mike, they got crowded, and like I heard about the Palestinians, some people were sent into our cell. Like there were maybe 7 beds or 8 beds in the cell. There were 13 people. No beds. Sometimes they allowed them to bring in mattresses. Sometimes they had to sleep on the floor, no mattresses. And food, most of us were on a hunger strike. They didn't deal with the food issue, but others weren't. And other people had medical issues. And notably, a man I had met, his name was Paddy from Ireland, I believe, and he's an 80-year-old man that needed insulin. And there were other people that needed medication that didn't get it. And so we yelled and screamed and caused a hubbub. They brought in the task squad all armed to the teeth to try to intimidate us. We continued until the next day. They waited another day to bring in the insulin, to bring this person to the doctor and insulin, and to punish us. I don't think there was breakfast the next day. They promised us also showers and a walk per day. We never got that. So the hygiene was low. And we did have running water in the bathrooms, so we had a drink. But I did a hunger strike, Mike, as I'm in solidarity with the Gazan people, and also to protest our interception, and a water strike, as I did in the Honduras, and that was the hardest part after 3 days. So a lot of us did hunger strikes and water strikes. And there was rough treatments. If you had contested things, you get hit or slapped, kind of treated like animals inside. Ignominiously way to treat people, and many violations of the Geneva Convention as we were inside. And there are other things too. If you want me to go into them, I will.
Actually, I would. We had all these other questions. They can wait till next time. Tell us, because this is fascinating, and because we don't really, relate that it's a very we think, yeah, you've done a great thing and blah blah, but to actually put two and two together and to get four sometimes doesn't happen. You see things as being romantic. What you went through was very dangerous, wasn't it?
Well, yes, but again, when people start saying, "Oh, is it dangerous? It's a heroic," you know, it was, yes, it's very risky because now it's different than the Hondo Magnum. We've got more boats. The war has been revving up, going into a war zone, and then threats to treat us like terrorists. Some people on the way, and I didn't talk about this, Mike, on the way, when we got to Crete and other ports like Mallorca, were opportunities for people to leave because they heard about threats and the seas were rough. People didn't really buy into, didn't realize what it's like to be on a rough sea. Fortunately, I'm a sailor. I mean, I've been on fishing boats, and I got sick like everyone else. You get your sea legs and you move on, and that's it. But we people had to leave sometimes the boat definitively, and we had to let go a few people that weren't getting along, and then people that were sick. We had to take them in our dingy, because we were anchored off of Mallorca and Tunis, to shore so they could be hospitalized and see a doctor. So these things we didn't talk about. This is part of the risk, though, Mike, and some people didn't foresee this, and that's okay. They moved to the land crew, and their land crew was extremely helpful. We couldn't have done it without the land crew, and all places like Mallorca, Tunis, and so forth that really helped us get provisions and diesel and fuel and other things. But getting back to the prison, it really, you're literally counting the minutes, and I'm thinking, gosh, what would it be like to be in here more than a few days? But you see, I incurred a little bit more of a risk, I guess, than I did the last time. The last time, that was the second time I was in jail. The first time I was defending a Bedouin village in al-Ahmar and was in Moscovia, and I was deported in 2019. So I'm on a 10-year ban that expires 2029. So I'm going into the war zone with a 10-year ban. I did it with the Honduras, but they did, after 6-7 days, I was deported. But then they threatened after the Honduras that if I were to come back again, I would incur a minimal 3-year sentence. I figured that was a lie because you're always lying to you, but you never know. I mean, they could do that probably under their laws. I'm a recidivist, and I committed 2 felonies way back when I was defending the village, and I didn't want to be pushed around by the police, so I pushed back. So I've got that on my record. But anyway, getting back to the prison, so that's sort of behind. I'm wondering what they're going to do with people with Palestinian roots, Arab roots, and people that have been that are on. There were other people that are on 10 or 99-year ban. People there were people from the Magdalene there, like Thiago and other people that had a 99-year ban, as I received also after the Honduras. 99 years plus 5 years. That makes over 100 year of a ban. What are they going to do with recidivists? That was always a big question, Mike, especially since now they're going to be treating us more sternly, more firmly, and like terrorists. So that's always behind us. And then thinking about it. But while we were they did put us all together. So there are 2 lines of cells, about 15 cells, even looking at each other in a distance. And then in the front, they had 2 screens. They were showing the October 7th film that we really couldn't see unless you really bent in and see it. And then when they asked for people to serve others, it was hard for me because I'm on a water and a hunger strike, and I see the food. Well, after 2 days, you're not really hungry, but you're definitely thirsty. And then you see the tea, and you want to just thrust your head into that big vat of tea. And then the movie was ridiculous, showing us obviously the Israeli side to the November 7th thing and all the atrocities, and obviously not showing the atrocities committed by the Israeli soldiers and so forth. But people, many ignored it. They had this weird music coming from it. It was kind of like, we call it lobotomy music trying to calm us down, where it really didn't. We were just emboldened by it. So we have that sort of scenario. Then we have people that are yelling and screaming, that really there's people that aren't getting their anxiety medicine. I won't specify who that was. or there was someone that needed anxiety medicine and depression medicine. That was, yeah, and so I profited from the fact that I volunteered to serve to talk with everyone. You have a chance to feed people and then go to every cell unless the guard said, "Get back to your cell." And I was able to see people, and I was able to see the person who was yelling and screaming, "Hey, you got to calm down, because not only are you compromising your security, because I'm sure you were threatened by the guards, but the others around you." And so we were able to communicate with people. I was able to communicate, for instance, with Nwazi, who's the grandson of Mandela, who's very cool and very in jail and so forth. And we were able to talk and talk a lot with Thiago, who's really a very close friend, about what we can do and strategy, how we can calm people down, because there were times when people are yelling and screaming, and it was really against our rules. We're supposed to be nonviolent. We yell and scream and get violent, we're acting like the enemy. So the idea, and Santiago several times had to speak out. I did a couple times, and other people too. We've got to remember we're here for nonviolent purposes. We want to be firm, of course. For the person who needs insulin, we raise up the bar and yell and scream and slam our doors and stuff until that insulin arrives. But we don't attack guards, and we don't insult guards. And that was part of our red lines, but some people went over it in prison. They're not used to being in prison and so forth. So it was really desperate, because we were being jacked around. I mean, people were shifted to other cells without much notice. And then when they get to that cell, there's no mattress. They have to sleep on the floor. And they didn't have time to take their toothbrush and their towel. They have nothing. And they weren't told they were going to go to another cell. They thought maybe they'd be released. So there's a lot of contingencies there, and a lot of precarity and insecurities going on there, as well as you just don't know what your future is going to be like. And to top it off, Mike, each of us had what we call like a really expedited kangaroo court type of a hearing. We got before a judge early on who simply wanted to know if we wanted to leave. So it's just another agent, as many of us have come to us, say, "Come on, sign this and get out." And it's in Hebrew. We don't be able to read it. Or she said, "Sign this one in English or your language and get out." But it wasn't a trial. There was no lawyer. I never saw a lawyer, and I never saw anyone who saw a lawyer. Maybe there were the Adala lawyers that are supposed to be representing us. We saw them when we were in prison after the Handel and the Madeleine, 2 times while we were in prison. Here, not even once. And so we're at a hearing, and we have there's no prosecutor. So the judge is the prosecutor and our lawyer. It's obviously a conflict of interest, clearly in violation of all Geneva Convention standards for justice and so forth. And then she said, we didn't even have time to state our side of things, or whether we agreed or disagreed with being condemned for this ridiculous crime, including going back all the way to the illegal interception and trying to break an illegal blockade and all those illegal things that Israel did. We had no chance to really defend ourselves, other than we can say, I don't sign, I'm on a hunger strike, and that's it. And then boom, you're done. So that was a kangaroo court. It was a laugh. And I figured we were all waiting for our trial. Of course, that would have taken time, and maybe they just wanted to get us out the door. It would have taken too much time. But we all, you have a right to a trial. And I wanted to do the same thing when I was in the Honduras. I wanted to file an appeal. I wanted to tell the judge, well, if you're going to deport me, I want to already file an appeal of my imminent deportation, which would meant, unfortunately, that I would stay in jail for 3 weeks after everyone were released. But I wanted to do it to bother Israel. I wanted to get the media to say, I don't want to be in this prison not one more minute. I want to get out of here, but I'll do that. So I can. 3 weeks later is the hearing for the appeal. And if they were to deport me and I filed an appeal, I can't get back because I'm on a 105-year ban. And so the main thing is, I said, I will stay in jail voluntarily so I can appear at the hearing, which will probably not be in my favor, and then I'll be deported. They didn't agree with that. They didn't. They refused the appeal and deported me. I wanted to be the last at the Hondulev, and they made me almost the last. This time I asked for that too. And I was just carted off and dumped on the other side of Jordan with most people. We're pretty much one of the last groups to leave, not the last. But anyway, there's a lot of precarity here, Mike, and not knowing what's going to happen. And there's another stage when we got across the border. There were so many contingencies of what's going to happen there, and the negligence of the American consulate and other consulates were even more helpful than the American one, which is like not helpful at all. We can get into that. But getting back to prison, there's more to it. There were agents that were interrogating some of us. I know Thiago and I were interrogated at the same time with different agents. They're trying to get info, and finally they kind of broke down. We gave them only information that was public. And then they started talking about solutions. And I can get into that. It was really kind of surprising. There were intellectuals working, I'm sure Mossad agents or intellectuals working with the Mossad that wanted to find solutions because they looked like they're getting desperate because they asked me and I had to tell them the truth. I mean, they could see that the 1,000 Madeleines is already on its way. Are there other boats? And I said, for sure, let's see what the solutions are. And we can get into that if you want.
Our biggest problem is, Frank, we are running out of time.
Okay.
We've actually gone about 8 minutes over as it is, but I find your story fascinating. We can do one of two things: either come back again, the invitation's there, and continue, or if you could if you could abbreviate the experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more in the development. There's something I don't know if we even talked about even getting this flotilla together from Barcelona, from Tunisia, from Greece, from Italy. There were so many contingencies. I have to give credit to the leaders to getting us afloat. But that's another thing. I'll tell you what, I'll just describe quickly what happened at the end when we were deported. I mean, the Americans were put in one cell because we were just distributed all over the place. And then we were taken to a quick expedited check by a doctor. And they said, well, sort of like, are you breathing? Yes. Okay, fine. Next. But there was my friend who had who had some, there was man, and I haven't noted this, there were people beat up. I remember that time when the commandos gave us over to the police. A person was really manhandled because he didn't really want to give up his passport right away, and they just beat him up, silly, and they put on these handcuffs, and they always did that. They did that when I was in jail at first in Moscovia. These ankle, wrist, ankle braces they put on you way too tight. He had injuries from that. You could even see injuries that even cut into his skin, and then they mistreated. Anyway, you have all that we can go into later. Really, there's a lot more I think that would be interesting. But when they dumped us off, finally, they carted us from Negev Valley to the border, and that was a long 2-3 hour ride. And then they put us in these cages again, where 2 or 3 people were in there. We were kind of asphyxiating, kind of inside a van. There were several of these cages, and they closed the door, and it was really awful. But we got to the border. Then they dumped us off, and now we're in a customs area. And by golly, there we were out of Israel. So when we saw them leaving Israel, we really breathed a sigh of relief. Got to the customs area, were released, and then we saw our consulate. Some friends were able to let them through, so we could see them, and then we were processed inside. But the American consulate ignominiously came to us because for some reason, even though the French consulate is always, like Matthew and other people, have been very good during the Hondo, visited me twice. I visited me at least once in prison when I was in Kitziot prison in Negev recently. That was good. But they didn't show up. There were French citizens there. Most of the French had already left. But I was put in with the Americans, even though I wanted to be deported to France. And there I am with the consulate and 20 other Americans. And the consulate is lecturing us and saying, look, sorry about your situation. I'm not going to babysit you. All I'm going to do is take you in a bus and take you to the airport. Our question was, we don't have money. How we're going to get a flight? Well, that's kind of your problem. Good luck with that. and that's what we're going to do. Finally, one of the activists made a call to the delegation. Fortunately, delegation had set it up. There's a hotel in Amman where we could stay. We could refresh ourselves, finally get a shower, and maybe have something to eat. Maybe we'll break our hunger strike at that point and maybe get some clothes. Finally, we had to convince the driver, because it's under Jordanian law that from the customs, you have to go right to the airport under our circumstances. I convinced the driver we don't need to go to the airport. We have no money, nowhere, we have no way of getting to where we're going. We're just going to be walking around the airport wondering what to do. We have no money for the flights. And so they agreed when we got to the checkpoint in the bus. Now, the buses were big and comfortable. Now it's like even more comfortable than Greyhound. And my God, this was really a difference. And comfortable, and we were together, and we were chanting. We were kind of happy about it. And we went to the hotel. From that point on, Mike, we were taken care of, the food, and we were given a little bit of money, and they set up the flights. So but we couldn't count on the U.S. consulate, and they said, look, if you don't have any money, you want a flight, you have to borrow $5,000 from us, and then pay it back. If you don't, we're going to cancel your passport. That was sort of it, and then the consulate took off. Really didn't really help at all. Other consulates were helpful. I think they said we can help with food, and some consulates said we can even help with your flight. But we got through the delegation taken care of pretty much. But then this is another area we can get into, Mike, next time. But there were people left behind. There were still about 6 prisoners, and one of them, I think, was a girl who was upset and then bitten one of the guards, and she was placed in solitary or something. And of course, that was over our red line, but being highly punished for an act like that, and then others were just held there. And so we had a whole issue of getting them released later, Mike.
I think that we do need to have a longer conversation, because I think it's, besides fascinating, I think it's very important. And I think the more we know about it, and the more we know what you went through, we can appreciate it a lot more. And what do they say? Knowledge is a great thing. We need just to know about it. Dr. Frank Romano, you are an amazing person. I absolutely love talking with you, as you can tell. And you're a guy that one day I'd like to sit back with a couple of bottles of, doesn't have to be good red, but a couple of bottles of red, and we could have some cheese and crackers, and I could sit there like your student, sir, and just find out more about your fascinating life. It truly is. Dr. Frank Romano, author and Middle East analyst, and just a great person. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
If somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that, Frank?
They can look up my website, Frank Romano 11 Terror 5th or 5 at gmail.com, or just put my name in and put in GSF or al-Ahmar or Bedouins, and you'll find a lot of stuff. And I do hope you do, and you don't have to agree with what I said. Let's discuss it, and hopefully, Mike, we'll get to talk again.
We will indeed, and but I'm very sincere. When I start travelling again, I intend popping in with a couple of not great bottles of red, but still red, and we can as they say, chew the fat. Dr. Frank Romano, a pleasure. Thank you very much, sir. This is The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.